A little challenge never hurt anybody. In fact, it's a great way to get the blood pumping and the grey matter ticking over. But there is a limit. Following a shortcut up a steep hill or taking on a little extra responsibility at work might reward you with some oxytocin and a sense of accomplishment, but scaling the sheer face of a mountain or taking on a caged tiger might be going a little too far. Either as a holdover from the just one more quarter era when the arcade reigned supreme, or a desire to harken back to the days when games kicked you into the mud and had you begging for more, some video games are more than willing to cross that line and take things as far as they can legally get away with. Seriously, if From Software could hire a man to whack you over the head every time you died in Elden Ring, they probably would. The following games are so diabolical, devious, demanding, and deadly, only the most cunning, capable, canny, and downright crazy players can complete them. I'm Peter from TripleJump, and here are 10 more of the most challenging video games of all time. Number 10. Myst. While a good number of the games in this video challenge their players' dexterity and reaction speeds, Myst is happy to take things slowly and test brains over brawn. And for a puzzle game from the 90s, solutions get obscure fast, so make sure you have plenty of pens and paper at your disposal because there's going to be a lot of trial and error and absolutely no hand-holding. The game begins when the player is transported inside a mysterious book, where they awaken on an island and are left to their own devices to uncover its secrets. Some guidance is given in the form of an overarching story involving other books, different ages, and two trapped bickering brothers who need your help to free them, but it won't help you that much. Puzzles take the form of linking constellations to dates, deciphering combinations, matching sounds, and much more. If they weren't tricky enough to decrypt on their own, the clunky gameplay and bizarre choices on the part of the devs ratchet up the difficulty even higher. For example, the game allows fast travel, but by using it, you risk missing out on finding key items. This game almost necessitates the use of a guide. It's no wonder many people who bought the game when it first released still haven't beaten it over 30 years later. Number 9. Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. Frustration. That is the emotion that philosopher/PhD holder/former bassist for the electronic group Cut Copy, Bennett Foddy, wants you to feel in Getting Over It. It's inevitable. You will fail this game over and over, but if you're of a certain masochistic disposition, you'll probably love every minute of it. Like Sisyphus pushing that big old boulder, players are tasked with reaching the top of a mountain, only instead of hiking, they must fling about a pot-dwelling man by the name of Diogenes using a hammer. One slip-up could spell certain doom and see all your hard work go tumbling over the edge as Diogenes plummets back down to the very start. This is a game that relishes in seeing players lose all their progress in a single mistake, and its deliberately fiddly controls and precarious ledges and handholds mean players will be making plenty of mistakes. But don't lose heart. While attempting to overcome this Herculean feat, Bennett Foddy himself will be at your side, or rather in your ear, spouting philosophy and diatribes on perseverance. That is the whole point of this game, after all, perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds. But personally, after 5 minutes with it, I'm convinced it would be easier to climb a mountain with nothing but a hammer and a cauldron in real life. Number 8. Dwarf Fortress. Despite originally using ASCII text symbols for graphics, Dwarf Fortress has, like the Mines of Moria, far more lurking below its surface than you could possibly imagine. This is, after all, the game that saw its cat population dwindle after a series of updates and bugs caused them to get alcohol poisoning after walking through spilled beer and licking themselves clean. Yes, the procedural and emergent system systems on show are just that interconnected and complex. Loading up Dwarf Fortress for the first time sparks the generation of a new world map. Almost everything is placed procedurally, forming an entirely unique world every time. But this map isn't a one-off to be forgotten when you inevitably die, it persists. Dwarf Fortress is a roguelike, meaning players will die a lot, but while they'll lose the adventurer or fortress they were running that turn, the world will remember them and add them to its history as either legends of old or forgotten ruins. Complex systems breed steep learning curves and brutal difficulty spikes, and getting to grips with the sheer amount of information thrown at you will take time, perseverance, and many, many deaths. But, as the game's devoted community likes to say, losing is fun, because that's the only way you'll see everything it has to offer. Number 7. Ikaruga. To be honest, we could have filled this video with bullet hell shooters, but that might have been a little boring. Instead then, we just went with one of the most challenging and finger-twistingly intense of the bunch, Ikaruga. Ikaruga was originally released in 2001 as an arcade game, and it leant hard into that coin-guzzling, difficult-for-difficult-sake style of gameplay, with particles and projectiles turning the screen into a kaleidoscope of nightmares. When it was later ported to home consoles, it lost none of its infuriating flair. Gameplay takes the form of a vertical bullet hell shooter, with players piloting a spaceship to avoid obstacles and innumerable missiles while blowing up everything in their path. There are no upgrades or power-ups. Instead, weapon power is increased by building combos, meaning if you ever hope to see the credits, you need to play without taking a single hit. To make things even more difficult, your ship has a polarity button, which switches it between black and white. Black enemy bullets will damage and destroy your white ship and vice versa, but at the same time, a white ship will deal more damage to a black enemy and vice versa again. An hour with this game and you will be terrified of anything monochromatic. I still can't look at a chessboard to this day. Ugh. Number 6. Bloodborne. Picture it, a dark Victorian city dripping with macabre Gothic architecture, blood-spattered werewolves, enemies twisted from the shadows by unfathomable Lovecraftian forces, and you, a lowly, pasty little thing with a stick, as the only one who can set things to rights. Oh, and it's a From Software game. Yeah, this was never going to be easy, was it? Bloodborne puts players into the gore-soaked leather boots of a hunter, drops them in the streets of Yharnam, a city in the midst of a terrible beast epidemic, and tells you to go and have fun. Like all FromSoft games, the challenge here comes from the tough but fair enemy and level design. Naturally, the giant, screaming, bestial bosses take center stage, but the regular enemies in between can hit just as hard, or harder if you manage to get yourself cornered. Unlike the Dark Souls series, which favors defensive play, Bloodborne is aggressively offensive, so much so that unless you adapt to its quick and brutal style rapidly, you are in for a world of hurt. And if all that wasn't challenging enough, the Old Hunters DLC ups the ante to nigh on impossible levels, with the likes of Ludwig and the Orphan of Kos. Dexterity and determination are the key here, otherwise that "you died" screen is going to haunt your nightmares. Well, that and the Winter Lanterns. Number 5. Darkest Dungeon. Can't get enough of brutal Gothic Victorian settings overflowing with blood, body bits, and beasts beyond human comprehension? Well then why not try your hand at Darkest Dungeon? Be warned though, it can get a little challenging. And by a little challenging, I mean the kid gloves come off before you've even finished watching the opening cutscene. This roguelike dungeon crawler sees players inherit a crumbling family estate and charges them with leading a band of daring and foolish adventurers deep into the labyrinthine crypts below, where a keen eye must be kept on both their health and sanity, lest things go terribly wrong. Keeping anyone alive for more than one adventure is a challenge in its own right, but it's made even tougher by afflictions. Let a party member's sanity drop too low via darkness, death, or damage, and they might just be stuck with a permanent debuff. That, or immediately die of a heart attack. While its demoniac word choices and tenebrous Stygian paragraphs sound like the narrator swallowed every one of H.P. Lovecraft's short stories and then sicked them back up again, it adds wonderfully to the deeply oppressive atmosphere. Darkest Dungeon is a very grim and unrelenting experience, and one that only the most determined, or insane, will ever see the end of. Number 4. Spelunky 2. The hobby of spelunking, that is, exploring caves and squeezing yourself through narrow crevices miles below the ground, oh my god, I'm getting claustrophobic just thinking about it, is a dangerous activity in and of itself, but just imagine doing it while being hounded by deadly snakes and ghosts every step of the way. That is the basic premise of indie platforming roguelikes Spelunky and Spelunky 2. Both of which see a plucky adventurer delve deep below the ground in search of fame and fortune. While the first game is tough in its own right, the sequel kicked things up a notch and is regarded as quite the challenge by even Spelunky veterans. Playing as Anna, at least initially, daughter of the explorer from the first game, players must descend deeper and deeper below the ground, avoiding obstacles such as spikes and arrow traps, and enemies like bats and Egyptian gods to explore new biomes as they search for treasure and truth. Unfortunately, Anna is rather brittle, and so only 1 or 2 hits are enough to send her to that big cave in the sky. While it's unforgiving, the sheer number of tools and freedom the game offers mean that players who put in the time will be rewarded with secrets and strategies to make things easier. Number 3. FTL Faster Than Light. If anyone ever told you running a spaceship was child's play, they were lying. It might not be brain surgery, but it certainly is rocket science. FTL Faster Than Light is a real-time strategy roguelike that sees players take command of a Kestrel cruiser spaceship and tasks them with crossing the galaxy to deliver some highly sensitive information to the Galactic Federation. But of course, it was never going to be that simple. While your ship is capable of faster-than-light travel, it can only jump a limited distance at a time before needing to recharge. This is where hazards, such as hostile ships, come into play. Combat is a huge part of FTL and is where it truly starts to stress you out. Not only do players have to keep track of what their enemy is doing, they also have to keep an eye on their own crew, oxygen levels, hull integrity, and various other ship-wide systems. All of these systems interact with each other too. For example, fires will spread rapidly if left unchecked, and while they can be contained and quelled by blasting the airlock, it's very easy to miss a lone door and accidentally release your entire crew into the cold vacuum of space. Your hair will likely turn white with stress before you even get halfway across the galaxy. Number 2. Returnal. While it shares silly smushed-together naming conventions with Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, Returnal has literally nothing else in common with that over-the-top hack and slasher. No, like many of the games already mentioned, it's a roguelike, and one that's more than happy to kill you the moment you boot it up. The story sees Astra pilot Celine Vassos explore the off-limits planet of Atropos, where she almost immediately dies in a crash landing. Then, she does die shortly afterwards when the player is handed control, but wakes up in the middle of the crash again. This time loop is central to Returnal's gameplay, as a Metroidvania-style system sees players unlocking upgrades and new gadgets to attempt to finish in a single run. Easier said than done, naturally, as while the game takes the form of a third-person shooter, it's in fact a bullet hell shooter. The devious squid-like alien enemies fire lasers and projectiles in regular patterns and arrays, which must be dodged with precision timing while firing back with your own weapons. The runs are long, grueling affairs that take a real-time commitment to get through, and when you inevitably die and lose everything, it can be incredibly disheartening. The evilest trick the game pulls, however, even when you think it's finally over, it's only just beginning. And number 1, Hollow Knight. Souls-likes are tough, platformers are tough, Metroidvanias are tough, but a Souls-like platformer Metroidvania, well, that's just taking things a smidge too far, isn't it? But that's exactly what indie developers Team Cherry did with their seminal hit, Hollow Knight. And while it is a critically and commercially beloved masterpiece, it isn't half hard. Delving into the ruins of Hallownest and armed with nothing but a sword-like nail, players are left to their own devices to piece together the lore and backstory of what happened here, and why all of these bugs want them dead. While new upgrades and abilities found along the journey certainly make things easier and open up new areas, death comes quickly in Hollow Knight, so you better get used to it. Learning attack patterns and enemy placements is just as key to success as reaction speeds and careful timing, as the little knight is remarkably frail. Boss fights are brutal, balletic battles of attrition that will leave you sweating, and some of the gauntlets are so hard you'd think them impossible were it not for YouTubers out there to prove you wrong. The charming art style and visuals belie one hell of a tough but fair, edge-of-your-seat journey, and while it does occasionally slip over into the unfair, it has to be said that the rest of the game's brilliance really makes up for it.